In the heart of a bustling city, where the skyline shimmered with ambition and dreams, lived a young woman named Emily. At 28, Emily was a rising star in the world of digital marketing, known for her creativity and tenacity. Her days were filled with client meetings, brainstorming sessions, and the relentless pursuit of the next big idea. But amidst the chaos of her professional life, Emily harbored a secret passion, a love for storytelling that had been with her since childhood. Reddit. Every evening, after the city's noise had dulled to a gentle hum, Emily would retreat to her cozy apartment, a sanctuary adorned with books, sketches, and mementos of her travels. It was here, in the quietude of her personal space, that she allowed her imagination to roam free. She would pen down tales inspired by her experiences, weaving narratives that blended reality with a touch of whimsy. One night, as she scrolled through her social media feed, Emily stumbled upon a video that captivated her. It was a short film, raw and unfiltered, yet profoundly moving. The creator had shared a personal story, one that resonated deeply with Emily. She realized that storytelling had evolved. It was no longer confined to the pages of a book or the frames of a film. It had found a new home in the digital realm, where authenticity reigned supreme. Inspired, Emily decided to share her own stories. She began with a simple video, narrating an anecdote from her childhood, accompanied by hand-drawn illustrations. Her voice trembled with vulnerability, but her words were sincere. To her surprise, the video garnered attention. Comments poured in from viewers who found solace and connection in her narrative. Encouraged by the response, Emily delved deeper into her memories, unearthing stories that had long been buried. She spoke of triumphs and failures, love and loss, dreams and disappointments. Each video was a window into her soul, and with every upload, her audience grew. People from around the world reached out, sharing their own stories, creating a tapestry of shared human experience. As Emily's digital presence expanded, so did her confidence. She began to experiment with different formats, animated tales, collaborative storytelling, and interactive narratives. She learned to harness the power of visuals, music, and pacing to enhance her stories, ensuring they resonated with her audience. Her background in marketing proved invaluable as she understood the importance of engaging content and audience retention. But Emily's journey wasn't without challenges. There were moments of self-doubt, criticism, and creative blocks. Yet, she persevered, drawing strength from her community and the knowledge that her stories made a difference. She received messages from viewers who found comfort in her words, who felt seen and heard. It was a reminder of the profound impact of storytelling. Over time, Emily's passion project transformed into a full-fledged endeavor. She left her corporate job to focus on storytelling, conducting workshops, collaborating with fellow creators, and mentoring aspiring storytellers. Her platform became a haven for those seeking connection and understanding, a testament to the power of authentic narratives. Emily's story is a reminder that within each of us lies a reservoir of experiences waiting to be shared. In a world inundated with content, it's the genuine, heartfelt stories that cut through the noise, forging bonds and fostering empathy. So, as you navigate your own journey, remember the power of your voice. Embrace your stories, for they have the potential to inspire, heal, and unite. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the sprawling metropolis of New Avalon, the palace buzzed with anticipation. Inside the opulent walls, Lady Isabella, once a mere handmaiden, now stood adorned in regal attire, her eyes gleaming with ambition. Her rise to prominence had been swift, but the court was a treacherous place, and she knew that maintaining her position would require cunning and strategy. Across the grand hall, Lady Seraphina, known for her sharp wit and even sharper tongue, observed Isabella with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. Serafina had long held the favor of the king, and Isabella's sudden ascent threatened the delicate balance of power within the court. Meanwhile, Lady Ilara, the king's most recent consort, exuded an air of mystery. Her origins were shrouded in secrecy, and whispers of her involvement in the arcane arts circulated among the courtiers. Ilara's presence added an unpredictable element to the already volatile dynamics of the palace. The king, a man of charm and charisma, remained oblivious to the undercurrents of rivalry and intrigue that swirled around him. His attention was easily swayed by beauty and flattery, making him a pawn in the games of those vying for his favor. In the shadows, the Dowager Queen, a formidable matriarch with a reputation for manipulation, watched the unfolding drama with keen interest. She had seen many rise and fall in the court, and she was determined to ensure that her influence remained unchallenged. As tensions escalated, alliances were forged and broken with alarming speed. Secret meetings in moonlit gardens, clandestine messages hidden in bouquets, and veiled threats delivered with a smile became commonplace. The palace had become a chessboard, with each player maneuvering their pieces in a high-stakes game of power. Isabella, aware of the precariousness of her position, sought counsel from her trusted confidant, Marcus, a former knight turned advisor. Together, they devised a plan to solidify her standing by orchestrating a grand masquerade ball, an event that would showcase her grace and charm while subtly undermining her rivals. The night of the ball arrived, and the palace was transformed into a realm of enchantment. Guests donned elaborate masks, and the air was thick with anticipation. Isabella made her entrance, captivating all with her poise and elegance. As the evening progressed, she skillfully navigated conversations, planting seeds of doubt about her adversaries while reinforcing her own virtues. However, Serafina was not one to be outmaneuvered easily. She had anticipated Isabella's move and had her own surprises in store. As the clock struck midnight, a troupe of performers burst into the hall, presenting a satirical play that mirrored the court's recent events, casting Isabella in a less than flattering light. The crowd's laughter echoed through the hall, and Isabella's composure faltered. The Dowager Queen, observing from her throne, allowed a rare smile to grace her lips. The game was far from over, and she relished the unfolding spectacle. In the days that followed, the palace buzzed with gossip and speculation. Isabella's reputation had taken a hit, but she was undeterred. With Marcus's support, she regrouped, analyzing her missteps and preparing her next move. Ilara, ever the enigma, remained aloof, her true intentions hidden behind a veil of serenity. Yet, her subtle interventions hinted at a deeper involvement in the court's machinations. As the seasons changed, so did the alliances within the palace. Friendships turned into rivalries, and enemies found common ground. The pursuit of power was relentless, and only those with the sharpest minds and steeliest resolve would emerge victorious. In the heart of New Avalon, the palace stood as a testament to the grandeur and peril of courtly life. Within its walls, dreams were realized and shattered, and the dance of ambition continued, unabated. By the time I realized I was being outmaneuvered, it was already too late for common sense. It wasn't just about a few stolen kilowatts anymore. It had become a full-blown siege on logic, civility, and frankly, on my patience. After I installed the outlet locks, thinking that would be the end of her secret nightly charge raids, I found a notice from the HOA stuffed into my mailbox like some sort of official insult. It claimed that my unauthorized alterations to the property exterior violated community aesthetic standards. In other words, they didn't like that I locked the power box she was literally stealing from. And who signed it? Gregory Rains, HOA compliance officer. A man with the spine of a breadstick and the perfume of someone who just got a free bottle of cologne for opening a credit card at Nordstrom. Gregory showed up the next morning, clipboard in hand like he was delivering a death sentence. His little round glasses fogged up in the Seattle drizzle, and he tapped his pen against the lockbox like it had offended him personally. I showed him the footage. I told him about the outrageous spike in my electric bill. I even explained the military-grade monitoring I had in place. But none of it mattered. He blinked at me and said, "That's a private matter between neighbors, sir. The lockbox is in violation. Please remove it immediately." I complied, of course. I always did, at least on paper. I took down the box, unlocked the outlet, and smiled while doing it. Because by then, I wasn't thinking like a civilian anymore. I was thinking like a power systems specialist with 6 years of combat engineering experience and a petty streak. But before I built anything, I tried the reasonable route. I went to the next HOA meeting, which was about as productive as yelling into a hurricane. They met in the community clubhouse, where a dozen homeowners sat around folding tables, drinking lukewarm coffee and pretending to care. I raised my hand to speak, folder in hand, ready to show photos, video, and billing records. I got through maybe one sentence before Deborah, yes, same Deborah who had no idea about the electricity, stood up with a smile as artificial as her cheekbones. "Point of order," she chirped. "Personal disputes are not part of tonight's agenda. If Mr. Taylor has complaints, he may submit them in writing for the board to review privately." The president, a timid man named Harold, looked up from his donut and nodded. "Yes, quite right. Procedures." They shut me down with parliamentary politeness. I sat back down, seething, as Deborah casually proposed a new initiative: community EV charging stations. You heard that right. She wanted the HOA to install outlets near the clubhouse and other common areas to promote sustainable living, all funded equally by the homeowners, of course. Her voice dripped with faux enthusiasm as she explained how it would raise property value. What she didn't say, but what was clear to anyone reading the fine print, was that one of those stations would sit right behind her backyard gate. That night, I walked back to my house with my folder unopened, my jaw tight. The gloves were off. I started researching like I was prepping for a field op. HOA laws, county utility codes, electrical safety compliance regulations. I pored over documents, read engineering white papers, and consulted a retired city inspector I knew from my Corps days. I needed a way to protect my property that couldn't be touched by Deborah, her cronies, or Gregory's damp clipboard. That's when I came up with the SPS Smart Protection System, a legal, code-compliant electrical defense system used in industrial complexes to detect and block unauthorized power draws. I spent 3 straight weekends building it in my garage, testing it like it was going to Iraq. I programmed a 3-stage warning sequence: a soft beep, a blinking light, then a voltage fluctuation just strong enough to disrupt illegal usage. Not damage, but enough to get your attention. The system was armed with diagnostics, logged all activity, and came with a laminated warning sign bolted directly to the outlet post. Protected by SPS, unauthorized use will trigger automatic shutdown. I even checked it with the electrical board's legal hotline to make sure everything was by the book. I wasn't looking to hurt anyone. I was building a line that couldn't be crossed without consequence. A few days later, she noticed it. I watched her through my security feed, hands on her hips, lips pursed. She read the warning, snapped a photo of it, and walked away without a word. I thought maybe, just maybe, that would be the end of it. But no. Because Deborah doesn't back down. She escalates. The next day, she proposed, get this, emergency HOA funding for upgraded outlets in the common area. said the existing ones posed a safety risk and needed replacing immediately. No resident vote, no delay, just rubber stamped by her buddies on the board. By the weekend, workmen were outside my property installing a gleaming new power station, conveniently in line with her Tesla's charging port. She thought she'd won, that she'd forced the HOA to foot the bill for her lifestyle. But I had upgraded the SPS to monitor external usage patterns. I didn't control the common outlets, but I could track them. And what I saw, oh, it was beautiful. Deborah was charging from 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. every night, pulling maximum amperage, burning $500, 0 cents worth of electricity per month, which the HOA would split among all of us. This wasn't just a theft anymore. It was a grift. So I watched, and I waited, and I documented every kilowatt like it was a criminal fingerprint. And Deborah, she had no idea that her Tesla was about to become the most expensive lesson she'd ever learned. It was the quiet before the storm that always felt the most satisfying. The stillness of knowing you'd laid every trap perfectly, and now just had to wait for nature or arrogance to trigger the chain reaction. Deborah hadn't just kept charging her Tesla through the newly installed community outlet. She'd ramped up the intensity. My upgraded SPS, now silently monitoring the entire electrical draw from that side of the property, was logging every fluctuation, every spike, and every red flag like a black box recorder before a crash. I didn't alter the system. I didn't touch the public outlet. That's the part that makes this whole thing so brilliant. Everything was legal. Everything was documented. All I had to do was sit back and let the system do what it was designed to do, protect from abuse. On a Monday morning at 1:13 a.m., it happened. Deborah, still in those ridiculous pink velour pajamas that made her look like a walking Instagram filter, came out like clockwork. She marched across the back lawn with that same smug gait, dragged her industrial-grade charging cable out from behind her rose bushes, and plugged her Tesla into the community outlet. She paused, just long enough to glance at the blinking yellow warning light from the SPS panel. Her expression, somewhere between disdain and amusement, she scoffed, and then set the car to immediate maximum charge. That's when the sequence kicked in. Stage 1, soft yellow strobe. Stage 2, audible beeping. Short bursts, evenly spaced, about as subtle as a microwave. Stage 3, a controlled voltage modulation designed to simulate an unstable draw, a safety mechanism common in high-extend electrical setups. If she had unplugged then, nothing would have happened. But she didn't unplug. She doubled down. She smirked at the blinking light, shook her head in theatrical mockery, and, this is the part that really makes it art, tapped her phone screen to increase the charging amperage, past the standard draw. She thought it was bluff tech. She thought I'd installed some kind of scarecrow, and she was wrong. The SPS recognized the surge pattern as an equipment-damaging draw. It deployed its final measure, a safe, immediate disconnect of the circuit with a recorded spike in the log that could later be referenced. Nothing illegal, no danger, just pure, pre-programmed consequence. Across the yard, the Tesla screen flickered. Then it went black. That's not metaphor. The entire vehicle, bricked. Her $90,000, 0 cents eco-turkey symbol, turned into a dead, unresponsive shell with all the charm of a paperweight the size of a refrigerator. I watched from my kitchen window, sipping my morning coffee at sunrise, as Deborah stood in her driveway, staring at her car. She tried the key fob, Nothing. Tap the screen. Nothing. It was like watching someone discover gravity for the first time, shocked that the rules of the universe actually applied to them too. And then, true to form, she detonated. 15 minutes later, the front door to my house rattled like it had been hit by a SWAT team. I opened it calmly, still in slippers, coffee mug in hand, to find Deborah red-faced and wild-eyed, jabbing her finger toward me like I'd keyed her car with a car bar. "You did this," she shrieked. "You rigged the outlet. You're going to pay for the damage." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I simply stepped aside and handed her a manila folder. Inside? Full technical specifications of the SPS, County Code compliance documentation, photo evidence of all warning labels, and a time-stamped log of the system's response pattern, showing that the protocol only activated after 3 distinct visual and audio warnings were ignored. I didn't even read it. She just stood there, vibrating with fury, while her face shifted from shock to indignation to panic. "You think you're so clever?" she hissed. "My husband is already calling our lawyer. This is sabotage." And yet, I could see it in her eyes. For the first time, a flicker of doubt, a moment of realization that she had no leverage, no control, no invisible shield of entitlement to protect her from cause and effect. I offered one final measured reply. The system functioned exactly as it was designed. If someone ignored the safety features and chose to force power through an unstable draw, that's on them. She stormed off, screaming into her phone about lawyers and lawsuits and warranty. 2 hours later, her husband, Martin, pulled up in his pristine black Mercedes. He got out slowly, checked his reflection in the car window, and approached my property like someone entering a boardroom, not a neighbor's lawn. He had the slick look of a man who billed $600 0 cents an hour and thought folding laundry was beneath him. Martin didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply asked to see the documentation again. And to his credit, he read it. All of it, page by page, in silence. And when he finished, he looked at me with the hollow expression of a man calculating damage control. He thanked me for the file, not the incident, and walked back to his car with a stiffness that said he understood one thing. I had played by the rules. I'd done everything right. And Deborah? She'd lost her king on a chessboard she thought was rigged in her favor. Later that day, a flatbed truck arrived. It carried Deborah's precious Tesla away like a broken promise, the diagnostic screen still frozen with a red battery icon and an error code that translated roughly to, "You messed around and found out." And the best part? The repair quote, $21,900, 0 cents, not covered under warranty. As I stood in my driveway, watching the car disappear down the street, I realized something important. This wasn't just about power, electric or otherwise. It was about setting boundaries, about proving that sometimes the quiet ones, the ones who don't bark back immediately, are the ones you really shouldn't push, because they don't yell. They build. And what they build? It works. As the first rays of dawn pierced through the curtains, Ethan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with thoughts of the previous night's revelations. The weight of the secrets he had uncovered pressed heavily on his chest, making it hard to breathe. He knew that confronting the truth was inevitable, but the fear of what it might bring held him captive. Downstairs, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air. Ethan's mother, Margaret, stood by the kitchen window, her gaze fixed on the horizon. She sensed the turmoil brewing within her son, but chose to give him space, hoping he would come to her when ready. Ethan finally mustered the courage to face the day. He descended the stairs, each step echoing his resolve. Margaret turned to him, offering a warm smile. "Morning, sweetheart," she greeted, handing him a steaming mug. "You look like you've been through a storm." Ethan chuckled softly, taking a sip. "Feels like it, Mom." They sat in silence for a moment, the unspoken words hanging heavily between them. Finally, Ethan broke the silence. "I need to talk to you about something important." Margaret nodded, her expression turning serious. "I'm listening." Ethan recounted the events of the previous night, the hidden letters, the photographs, and the realization that his father had led a double life. Margaret listened intently, her eyes welling up with tears. When he finished, she reached out, placing a hand over his. "I always suspected there was more to your father's past," she confessed. "But I never imagined it was this complex." Anton looked into his mother's eyes, searching for answers. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Margaret sighed, her gaze distant. "I wanted to protect you. I thought the less you knew, the better. But I see now that was a mistake." Determined to uncover the full truth, Ethan decided to visit his father's old friend, Samuel, who had been a close confidant. Margaret hesitated, but ultimately agreed, understanding the importance of closure. Later that day, Ethan arrived at Samuel's quaint cottage, nestled on the outskirts of town. The elderly man welcomed him with open arms, his eyes reflecting a mix of surprise and sorrow. "I was wondering when you'd come," Samuel said, leading Ethan inside. They sat by the fireplace, the crackling flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. Ethan wasted no time, diving into the questions that had plagued him. Samuel sighed, taking a sip of his tea. "Your father was a complicated man. He had his demons, but he also had a heart of gold. He made choices, some good, some bad, but always with the intention of protecting those he loved." Ethan listened, absorbing every word. The pieces of the puzzle began to fit together, painting a picture of a man torn between duty and desire, love and obligation. As the evening wore on, Samuel handed Ethan a worn journal. "Your father wanted you to have this when the time was right." Ethan opened the journal, the pages filled with his father's handwriting. Each entry revealed a man grappling with his choices, seeking redemption, and expressing unwavering love for his family. Tears streamed down Ethan's face as he read. The anger and confusion that had consumed him began to dissipate, replaced by a profound understanding and a newfound respect for the man he had called father. Returning home, Ethan embraced his mother, the journal clutched tightly in his hand. "I think I finally understand him," he whispered. Margaret smiled through her tears. "He would be proud of you." That night, Ethan sat by his window, the journal resting on his lap. The stars twinkled above, bearing silent witness to his journey. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but with the truth as his guide, he felt ready to face whatever lay ahead.